76 million records sold. But in 1975, Bob Seger couldn't even fill a bar outside Detroit. His record label had dropped him, the industry had written him off, and he was nearly broke. Yet within 2 years, he'd become one of rock's biggest stars. The secret? A risky decision that put him at war with the entire music industry, a gamble that would either make him a legend or end his career forever. This is the true story of how Bob Seger fought the system and won. The Detroit Disappointment. Bob Seger dominated Detroit's rock scene in 1968, his electrifying performances packing local venues. But beyond Michigan, he was just another struggling musician dreaming of national success. Capitol Records offered Seger a deal that seemed like a dream come true. He signed on, changing his band's name from The Last Heard to the Bob Seger System. It was a new beginning, full of promise. Seger's debut album, Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, hit the airwaves in 1969. The title track climbed to number 17 on the Billboard Pop chart, but the album stalled at number 62. The rest of the country wasn't embracing Seger's sound like his hometown fans had. Seger pushed forward, releasing Noah and Mongrel. But neither album caught on. Sales disappointed, and concert attendance outside Michigan remained low. While Detroit still loved him, Seger struggled to fill small clubs elsewhere. The setback wore Seger down. He felt crushed by the rejection, questioning everything about his music and future. The dream of stardom that once seemed close now felt impossibly far away. Making matters worse, other Detroit artists found national success. The Motown sound dominated the airwaves, with acts like the Supremes becoming household names. Even in rock, bands like the MC5 generated buzz beyond Michigan. Seger watched his peers achieve the recognition he craved, wondering why his music couldn't connect the same way. The situation reached its lowest point when Capitol Records, frustrated by Seger's lack of broader appeal, dropped him. It was a devastating blow that might have ended a less determined artist's career. Seger briefly quit music, enrolling in college to figure out his next move. But the fire that drove Seger from Detroit's garages to its biggest stages still burned within him. After soul-searching, he made the tough choice to keep pushing forward. He knew the road ahead would be harder than ever, but he couldn't let go of his dream. Seger recommitted to his music, determined to make his voice heard beyond Michigan. Little did Seger know that the toughest challenges of his career still lay ahead. The next few years would test his resolve like never before, pushing him to the brink of quitting music for good. But sometimes, it's the darkest moments that lead to the brightest breakthroughs. Broke and determined. Bob Seger's career in the early 1970s was a stark contrast of highs and lows. In Michigan, he played to packed stadiums of 76,000 screaming fans. But just 200 miles away in Chicago, he found himself facing rows of empty seats in dingy bars, his powerful voice echoing off disinterested patrons. This Jekyll and Hyde existence took a heavy toll. While Michigan gigs paid well, out-of-state shows barely covered expenses. The band lived on a shoestring budget, often sleeping in their van or on friends' couches. Every mile on the road pushed Seger further into debt and despair. The grueling schedule wore Seger down physically and emotionally. In quiet moments, he questioned everything: his talent, his choices, and whether he had the strength to keep chasing his fading dream. His bandmates felt the strain too, sharing frustrations about low pay and an uncertain future. Their once strong camaraderie began to fray under the weight of shared struggles. As months passed, Seger came dangerously close to quitting music altogether. The idea of finding a more stable path became tempting with each disappointing show. The fire that had once burned so brightly within him flickered dangerously low. But even in his darkest moments, something kept pushing Seger forward. In 1974, he formed the Silver Bullet Band, a carefully crafted ensemble of talented musicians who shared his vision and work ethic. With this new group, Seger felt renewed purpose and energy. They hit the road with determination, honing their sound and building a reputation as one of the tightest live acts in rock and roll. This rebirth culminated in 1975 when Seger and the Silver Bullet Band recorded Live Bullet at Detroit's Cobo Hall. The album captured the raw energy of Seger's performances and the electric connection with his Michigan fans. It was a risky move, but for Seger, it was a chance to share his struggle, determination, and hope with the world. As the crowd roared and the tapes rolled, Seger poured everything he had into the performance. But even as the last notes faded, a nagging question remained. Would this live album finally break him through to a national audience? Or would it be another crushing disappointment in a career that had already seen too many? The gamble that changed everything. As Live Bullet faded from the airwaves, Bob Seger found himself at a critical juncture. His next move could either launch him to stardom or end his career. In a bold and risky decision, Seger chose to release 2 albums in 1976, Live Bullet and Night Moves. This gamble required every penny he had and more, with the potential to leave him financially and emotionally devastated if it failed. The financial stakes were staggering. Seger invested over $200,000 of borrowed money, roughly $1 million in today's dollars. His house, his car, and his future were all on the line. If either album failed, he'd be bankrupt. Record executives warned him he was committing career suicide. Live Bullet revolutionized live album recording through a then unheard-of technique. Seger insisted on using multiple mobile recording trucks and 24-track recording, capturing every instrument with pristine clarity while maintaining the raw energy of the performance. Industry veterans called him crazy for spending so much on a live record. But Seger knew the album had to capture the full power of his live show. Live Bullet hit stores first, showcasing Seger's raw energy on stage. The album used a unique recording approach that balanced live performance electricity with studio polish, highlighting Seger's powerful vocals and the Silver Bullet Band's tight musicianship in a fresh way. As Live Bullet gained momentum, Seger headed to the studio for Night Moves. This album would reveal his growth as a songwriter, with the title track drawing from his own bittersweet teenage experiences. However, Seger faced strong opposition from record executives, who thought releasing 2 albums so close together was a mistake. They pushed for a safer approach, but Seger stood firm, willing to risk everything for his music. The response to both albums was overwhelming. Live Bullet became a bestseller in Detroit and slowly conquered the national charts, sticking around for over 3 years. Critics praised it as one of the greatest live albums ever made. Night Moves, however, was the true game changer. The title track soared to number 4 on the Billboard Pop Singles chart, giving Seger his first top 10 album. It went on to sell over 6 million copies in the U.S., transforming Seger from a regional act into a rock star almost overnight. Seger's risky move had paid off spectacularly. He'd proven that raw talent and authenticity could triumph over industry formulas, opening doors for other artists to take creative risks. But as Seger stood on the edge of long-awaited stardom, he was about to face a whole new set of challenges that would test him in unexpected ways. The price of fame. Bob Seger's rapid rise to fame brought unexpected challenges that shook him to his core. As Night Moves soared up the charts, his life transformed almost overnight. Once struggling to fill small clubs, Seger now played to packed arenas across the country. His gravelly voice became a staple on radio stations nationwide, and his face appeared on magazine covers. But this newfound stardom came at a steep cost. The constant spotlight began to wear on Seger, eroding the simple pleasures he once enjoyed. Privacy became a distant memory, as he could no longer go about daily life without being recognized. This loss left him feeling isolated and disconnected from the world he'd known. As Seger's popularity grew, record executives tried to seize control. They demanded he use hit-making producers, wanted to choose his singles, and even tried to make him change his image. They wanted to turn me into something I wasn't, Seger later revealed. When he refused to comply, the label threatened to withhold promotion and tour support. But Seger, remembering his early struggles, stood firm. "I didn't fight this hard to let them tell me who to be." The relentless touring and industry conflicts took their toll. Friends and family noticed changes in Seger as the easygoing, passionate musician they knew became increasingly stressed and withdrawn. The road that had once been his second home now felt suffocating, keeping him from the people and places he loved. Despite these hardships, Seger's commitment to his art never wavered. He insisted on writing his own material and keeping his longtime band members, even as the label pushed for more marketable options. These battles, while draining, set an example for other artists fighting for creative independence. As the 1980s progressed, Seger's inner turmoil intensified. His 1987 hit Shakedown topped the charts, but the triumph felt hollow. The pressures of fame and the music industry's demands left him feeling overwhelmed and alienated from his roots. In a surprising move, Seger stepped away from the spotlight at the height of his career. He retreated from recording and touring, shocking fans and industry insiders alike. The reason? A deeply personal choice that would keep him away from music for nearly a decade. "I had kids at age 47, Seger explained years later, and I thought it might be a good time to slow down and watch them grow up." The man who had spent his life chasing fame now chose family over fortune, exercising the very freedom he'd fought so hard to maintain throughout his career. As Bob Seger retreated from public view, his influence on the music world continued to resonate. But the story of his eventual return, and the wisdom gained during his time away, would prove just as powerful as the music that made him a legend. Bob Seger's journey to stardom was a long, tough road. His fight against the music industry's unfair practices laid the groundwork for future artists to keep control of their work. Seger's influence goes beyond his impressive record sales. His battle inspired other musicians, like Taylor Swift, to stand up for their rights decades later. In today's music world, dominated by streaming, Seger's legacy continues to shape conversations about artist rights. His story is a stark reminder that success often comes at a heavy cost. But it also shows that staying true to your art, even when faced with seemingly impossible challenges, can create a lasting impact that reaches far beyond hit singles and chart positions. Today, as artists battle streaming services and fight for control of their music, Seger's story remains surprisingly relevant. His refusal to compromise artistic integrity for commercial success set a precedent that echoes through Taylor Swift's battle for her masters and modern artists' struggles for fair compensation. He proved that sometimes the biggest victories come not from following the system, but from having the courage to fight it.